To go. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Site Reliability Chats for April 27th. It is the 27th, isn't it, Mandy?
It is, in fact, the 27th, yes.
Yes. I'm Julie Gunderson, Senior Reliability Advocate here at Gremlin, and we are joined by Mandy Walls.
Yes.
Mandy.
Hi, Mandy Walls. I'm a DevOps advocate at PagerDuty.
Yeah, Mandy has been on the show before. Unlike last time, we will not be playing Pokemon Go Live because I don't know how to play it. But thank you, Mandy, for being on with us. Jason Yee, who is normally my co-host, is actually at AWS Summit in London today. So hoping Jason is going to be having lots of fun. As I silence my watch, because I did not do that ahead of time, we will get started. Normally we don't talk about internet outages or power outages that were caused by things, but because it is allergy season, I kind of wanted to kick us off with just this little fun one, which pollen caused a power outage in Austin for about 2,000 people on Monday because it caused by a power pole catching fire due to rain falling on pollen debris. So allergies are in fact real and will cause fires. Mandy, do you have thoughts here?
My favorite part of this story is that this has happened before. So, might be time for some preventative remediation on this one. I don't know. It's kind of a fun story, but oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it did. It happened according to KXAN. This happened in April of 2021. This is not an April Fool's joke. It is true. It did happen. When the Austin Fire Department said that a light mist falling then reacted with dust on top of poles, causing them to catch fire. So, for everybody suffering from allergies out there, good luck. Hopefully things will not catch fire at your house. But moving on to some other interesting stories. So I've been talking about this. Mandy, I was chatting with you just on the side about this last week. We've been talking about these VA electronic health record systems, and I talked about it in one of our first episodes. So this is due to Cerner. And we talked about it last week because there was an outage with the electronic health record system because of Oracle actually being down. And then on Tuesday, so just yesterday, the Department of Veterans Affairs suffered 2 more outages. They went down for 127 minutes. They went down yesterday and then on Monday for 127 minutes. They haven't told us why these incidents occurred last time, but this happened in Walla Walla. All we know is that it's due to a load imbalance. So this is kind of interesting because this seems to keep happening to Cerner. So the source of this article is FedScoop, which I will actually post a link to this if you'd like to read the full thing in the comments section. But Mandy, you've heard me kind of rant about this a little bit. Do you kind of have some thoughts here?
I don't know. I mean, this project sounds like a nightmare, but there isn't a whole lot of discussion of what this architecture looks like underneath. It's interesting that they've gone to the trouble of calling out Oracle on this. Normally you wouldn't necessarily hear a vendor mentioned unless they're actively included in the work that's being done. But we haven't seen anything reported from Oracle to say what they're working on or what this actually might be. And not really a clarification on whether or not it's a database product or if they're utilizing Oracle Cloud.
Yeah, I know that last week too, we talked about Oracle. So they're currently seeking antitrust approval to acquire Cerner for $28.3 billion. But what's interesting is this project for the electronic health records by Cerner is projected to cost at least $16 billion. So there is a lot of money being thrown around here for some incredibly unreliable systems that people depend on.
Yeah, and Oracle has a healthcare division and has for a long time. They bought some, I forget what it was even called. It was like some other information systems company based in the Northeast years ago. So they've been kind of playing in this space for a while. So them acquiring Cerner would add to that part of their portfolio. Whether or not that's good for everybody else is, an exercise left to the reader. But yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, this is kind of one of those things. So let's see. I think the first incident that we reported on a few weeks ago was a bug in the system. Then last week it was Oracle being down. And then today it's load balancing issues, or yesterday. So there's a lot of different things going on with this electronic health records system. And unfortunately, the people that are affected are those in the VA, because those are the records that are being affected. And so thanks to all the nurses and the doctors who are doing a great job of taking care of folks, even in light of medical systems being down. But that actually kind of transitions us into our next story, which involves Tenet Health. So Tenet Health, according to SC Magazine, was having a cybersecurity incident last week, which resulted in the immediate suspension of access to IT applications. And it's one of the largest hospital care service providers in the US, with over 146 hospitals. So Mandy, you and I were kind of chatting about what this actually meant.
Yeah, in contrast to it being electronic health records, this sounds like a more generalized IT outage, right? So like access to systems. And one of the articles pointed out that like the phones weren't working, so some kind of VoIP access is also impacted there. So this is a slightly different kind of outage, but still, hospitals have been targets of ransomware attacks for a long time, and kind of slow to adopt more defensive practices.
Yeah, and this one, you're right. It did involve the phone and the computer system. So two of the hospitals at least hit were St. Mary's Medical Center and Good Samaritan Medical Center, but it sounds like there were quite a bit more. There were a lot of articles on this. But yeah, it sounded like nurses and doctors had to leave the hospital grounds in order to make calls because cell phones weren't working. They had to resort to what they said, backup systems, to make sure that they could deliver medications and care to patients. We don't know what those well-established, I'm using quoting fingers because that's literally what they said, well-established backup processes Tenet has. At this point, there were no reports of patients being injured because of this. But where it was a network outage, they're saying that it was a cybersecurity attack incident. So the question is, will we ever actually get the full information on that? And I think that might be a theme that we're going to hear about today, about transparency on the postmortems or root cause analysis, whatever you want to call it, right? Yeah. But we saw this with the Netherlands train outage that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, whether or not we're ever going to get the full, true accounting of what occurred. And I think with cybersecurity incidents, there's most likely a chance we won't. But what are your thoughts, Mandy?
Yeah, I think like when you see these, like the limitations around sort of publishing full disclosure on what happened potentially exposes the victim to more risk, right? Because you're saying we had a problem in XYZ system, which dedicated crackers are going to say, oh, well, I know all about how to break into that thing. Maybe they haven't seen this particular, vulnerability, and try and get into there, and it makes them a juicier target. So yeah, you don't often then end up seeing a lot of detailed reports because it gives people more information for figuring out how to get in.
Now, to be fair, though, that's with cybersecurity incidents, healthcare, medical records. We're talking, even in the Netherlands, train systems. That should not be the case for things like Hulu. So Mandy and I were having a little bit of fun this morning trying to figure out what happened after this outage with Hulu. So there was an outage with Hulu. I actually tweeted about this with a very crooked picture. Sorry for that. Kind of drove me crazy. Probably shouldn't have tweeted such a crooked picture. That is me actually taking a picture of my computer screen so that I had it for site reliability chats. But on April 21st, Hulu went down. What was really frustrating is I was like, is Hulu down? And then the first thing I did was I went to Twitter, and on Hulu's own support page, which we can see right here, the most recent notification is from April 9th or August 9th. So there was nothing about this rather large outage that they had. I think, what was it, Mandy? A couple hours?
Yeah, it sounded like it was most of the evening Pacific time.
Yeah. And so while we don't want to necessarily pick on organizations for having incidents, transparency around that and giving your customers a way to understand what's going on or to know that there's a problem is really important. And so this was really frustrating because we either had to rely on Down Detector or other people on Twitter saying that Hulu was down. And Mandy, you were doing some digging. Any idea what caused it?
No, there's nothing reported. Like I don't use Hulu, so I don't have any experience of how they normally respond to anything. But like when we started talking about this outage, I went looking on their customer community forums, and like ain't nobody at Hulu paying any attention to what's going on over there. And like that's super interesting. Like I'm not sure why you have a community forum if no one's paying any attention. So yeah, that's good luck.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, at least kind of I understand. Like for me, it was really hard because I was trying to watch The Thing About Pam, which is amazing, like great show, well done. I couldn't watch it, couldn't find information. And so I guess for Hulu, they just knew that I wanted to watch it so bad I wasn't going to cancel my streaming service. But like when we talk about news that's going on and people canceling streaming services, one thing that we don't have a slide for, though, is what's going on over at Netflix, right? They saw a massive or a big drop in subscribers. And now they're saying, I think
they saw their first drop in subscribers. It was 200,000 subscriptions, which is not...
It's too big. And I thought that was related to what was going on in Ukraine as well.
Yeah. And so like balancing out like global growth versus what's going on and losing access to the Russian and Ukrainian markets, and then whatever scuttlebutt's going to happen for the changes to subscription models, whether that means they've lost a third of their value in the market, like that's another question to be had. And like, I'm not sure it warrants that kind of drop, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, I can actually understand, this is getting a little off topic, but I can understand the changes in the subscription model. I mean, I of course have never shared any of my passwords with my mother or my friends because that would be wrong. Mandy, would be against those terms of service, right? But no, I can absolutely understand that. I think one of the other big things too is other content providers are pulling their content from Netflix to stream on their own channels. So for example, going back to Hulu, which I would say then it is even more important that your systems are resilient if you're going to play in this competitive field. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, there's been a lot, and we'll diverge a little bit here because I think kind of some of the things that we're seeing too are related to what's going on in the market. Like we are not stock analysts or anything like that, but it is earnings season. Everyone we've talked about so far is a publicly traded company. So like your ability to be transparent when you're also exposed to the market for capital is kind of a tough thing to do, right? And we totally understand that. So we're looking at, you know, large companies, huge market caps, lots of things going on there. And the market is twitchy right now anyway with everything else that's going on. So we've seen a huge sell-off across my portfolio is down like 25%. I'm just like, what is even going on? But I'm just going to buy more, right? But like, you know, there's a whole lot of other concerns here when you're talking about Disney and Hulu and Cerner and Oracle and all these other places that are, you can't report too much because the analysts are going to be like, well, you've had all these outages and what are you doing? And blah, 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 blah. And that creates a lot of really sticky questions for people. So it's tough to sort of balance that out when the market is acting like astrology for white dudes right now. So.
Very fair, Mandy. I like your take on that. But if you work for any of these companies and if you'd like to come on and are allowed to talk about maybe some of the learnings, we'd love to have you. With that, we've kind of got another one to talk about here. It looks like Apple Pay actually had an outage that only affected MasterCard customers. And so, Mandy and I were talking about this as interesting because we're talking about a bigger scope around incidents that you might be experiencing. So, long story short, according to 9 to 5 Mac, the Apple says the outage on the Apple platform began around 3:54 a.m. Pacific time. It was briefly fixed at 1:23 p.m. Pacific time, but then it affected Apple Pay users at 2:10 Pacific time. And now I guess it has been resolved, although I do not have the specific time on that. But when we talk about what is affected, so what happened is if you had a MasterCard, debit, or credit card already loaded into your Apple Pay, you were fine. This affected folks who were loading new cards into their Apple Pay, and they were unable to do that. So a couple of things here. I mean, I can tell you that I have been completely reliant on Apple Pay, especially because right before I went out of country, my chip on my bank card broke, and I hate my bank. I have to switch my bank. They still haven't sent me my new card. It's been like since November or since April 11th that I asked them. So it's a good reminder to call. But I relied on Apple Pay to be able to use my card, which was awesome. And I'm still using it. Like, thank goodness. Thank you, Starbucks, for taking Apple Pay. But Mandy, when we were talking about we were talking about this and your thoughts were that this had less to do with Apple Pay and more to do with MasterCard.
Yeah, this is one of those places where and we've kind of gone back and forth too with what is an outage, right? Because for the vast number of users of Apple Pay, they're not even going to have noticed that anything was going on here because you're not every day adding a new MasterCard to your account. I couldn't tell you the last time I added anything to my Apple Pay account. And I do like you, I use it pretty constantly because I want those airline points in case I'm ever allowed to travel again. But so saying that this is an outage and is headline worthy is kind of a bit of the sky is falling rather than saying this particular feature has been down. And I understand the layperson doesn't really know enough about what's going on there to understand the difference between those things. But for actually talking about what was going on, the impact of this on the average user, they wouldn't even have noticed. But it's a headline outage. Is it though? I don't know, right? So talking with your team, especially if you're dealing with something like this, talking with your team about the actual scope of your problem and associating severities and urgencies in a way that actually reflects what's going on for your users is super important for de-stressing your team that's responding to all of your incidents.
And kudos to Apple. Kudos to Apple for having a great Apple support page that you can easily find, that you can understand what the statuses of their systems are. So I was just looking at their page. As a matter of fact, their system status page, which I will post a link just for a little bit of fun. I really appreciate Apple. I appreciate Slack, those companies, PagerDuty, those companies that have information on the status of their systems. But according to the system status page, there was also an App Store resolved issue on April 25th that occurred from 2:15 a.m. to 10 a.m. So that didn't affect maybe users in North America, but there was an Apple Music issue 2:15 a.m. to 10 a.m. So same day, same time. Obviously a related
probably
issue.
Same process that was impacted.
Yeah, but thank you to Apple for providing us that information. That kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with, sorry, Hulu, but I'm harping on you, with Hulu, with Cerner, with Tenet. How are we getting this information out? And Mandy, I do understand that there are implications with publicly traded companies, but there's got to be a middle ground.
But why? For the average consumer, what's it going to do for them? Like for us, we're part of the demographic that's going to use this and learn from it and hopefully help our colleagues at these other companies improve that. But like as something that's going to get reported in the Wall Street Journal or in the local newspaper anywhere, like, do your lay people care? I don't know. Like
I don't know.
Unanswered question.
This was the first time my mom didn't call me asking about what was going on, why if I could fix Hulu, because
she thinks she can fix Facebook. We've already established that.
I know. I just think she didn't notice it. I almost proactively told her Hulu's down. Don't worry, I can't fix it. But she didn't notice. But I mean, I just think that, especially for these nice to have services, I can go over to Peacock and watch the thing about Pam. So maybe that is going to be a competitive advantage to them. I don't know. I'm also kind of a little bit too lazy to cancel all of my streaming services and move over to a new one. I guess we shall see, but we will make sure to keep bringing you this news. It was actually a light week on major outage news. So congratulations, Reliable Internet, for this past week. You've done a great job. Now, Mandy, you and I have some stuff. Mandy and I are going to basically be hanging out for the next while together, next couple of weeks. Today, we will be hosting a webinar for Gremlin. So you can find that. That's in just a couple of hours, Mandy. And then we're really excited to be speaking tomorrow at WTF is SRE. And Mandy, I think if you want to talk about that, I can probably find a link for folks to register for that.
Yes. So WTF is SRE is Container Solutions Practitioner Conference. It runs every year. This is a second or third year for it, I guess now. But it's virtual all day tomorrow. Our session is in the morning, right? Like early for you.
Yeah, our session is at early is relative. It's 9 a.m. my time. So definitely check it out. I posted the link to register for that, but we will be there. And on Tuesday, I'm very excited that Ms. Mandy Walls will be in Boise, Idaho at DevOps Days Boise, which is a conference that I'm an organizer for. I've also posted the link if you happen to be local watching this and want to come to the conference. But Mandy, you want to tell us a little bit about what you'll be talking about in Boise?
Yeah, in Boise, my talk is improving automation to reduce toil. So we'll be talking about why you want to do it and how to do it right.
You know, that leads me to a tweet I was talking about last week with Jason. Kelsey Hightower posted a tweet that said something along the lines of, in the past few years, we've been focusing on automation. And instead we should have been focusing on understanding. And then we're
not mutually exclusive.
Yeah. I wonder if I can find that tweet. Probably not, since we all know that I cannot multitask, but check out Kelsey Hightower's page at Kelsey Hightower if you want to find awesome tweets and useful information. He's absolutely fabulous. But with that, yeah, Mandy, I'm excited to have you in Boise. For folks that are arriving early, I'm going to take some peeps into the mountains to find some mushrooms and hide from bears. Well, it's because we're competing with bears to hunt for morel mushrooms, everybody. Very excited about that. But Mandy's talk will be posted to YouTube after DevOps Days Boise. We'll get those up in the couple of weeks following. And I'm looking forward to hanging out with you for the next while. Yeah. So with that, folks, make sure to like and subscribe. I think I'm supposed to say smash that like button. I don't know. That's what they all say. I say this every time. I guess I'm old. You could just click the subscribe and like button. Mandy, anything you want to...
Yeah, in addition to the upcoming events I have with Julie, if you'd like to know more about site reliability, incident response from the PagerDuty side, our summit is coming up in June. It is a set of 3 hybrid events, one in San Francisco, one in London, and one in Sydney. So wherever you are in the world, we have something in your time zone. And you can find that at pagerduty.com/events/summit. And the Virtual attendance is free. You'll get access to the keynotes and the video on demand library. And we can also hope to see you in person in one of those locations. So, yeah.
Yeah, Mandy, why don't you toss a link into the comments? I'm also speaking at Summit.
I can't post to your comments, but
well, if you send me a link, then
I will post it in a private chat.
But yeah, I will also be speaking there. I'll be talking about how you cannot buy DevOps. So really looking forward to that. Thanks for having me. And while we're talking on things that Mandy and I are doing, we're also speaking at SLOconf.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'll get a link to that. You want to talk about it?
What? Yeah, that's in May
9th. May 9th to the 12th.
Yeah, so SLOconf is interesting. This is a production of Noble 9, right? And it is a set of very short talks. So the talks here are meant to be sort of snack size, sort of like watch on your lunch break, get a little quick hit about anything SLO, and they're like 5 to 10 minutes a piece. So there's a lot of them there, and that'll run that second week in May.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing lots of fun stuff together. Mandy, thanks for being our guest. And not sure if Jason's going to have you back next week. No, you'll be in Boise with me. We're going to be at breakfast
next week.
I will probably not be on the show next week. I don't know. It might just be Jason because I might be having breakfast in person with Mandy. Very excited to do some in-person hugs. And everybody, thank you for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you next week. So have a fabulous rest of your week.